Oh my gosh, guys. Day 7 in the Diddy trial has just already exploded. Names were dropped: Barack Obama, Biggie Smalls. Cassie's mother testified. There is a lot to unpack, but this is your Day 7 morning recap of all that happened so far. Buckle up because it gets really crazy. So let's jump right in. Diddy entered the courtroom in what seemed to be high spirits. He was exuding all types of confidence, and he was described as just seeming very cheerful. And so cheerful, in fact, that he was just smiling, flashing smiles at different people. But then in one point, he turned to the public, like to the people in the courtroom, and makes a heart gesture, which he's done before. But this time, there was a woman in the gallery who was sitting out there who returned the gesture back to him, which is crazy. Like, who is this woman? We need to find out. Why is he sending the heart out? Was this specifically for her, or was it for just everyone in general? Is this woman a fan? Is she a defender of him? Is it one of his baby mamas? I don't know what happened with that or why that would happen. I just thought that was really strange to start Day 7. David James, that's Diddy's former assistant, was back on the stand today. So he testified yesterday on Day 6 at the end of the day. And today they wrapped up his testimony and also his cross examination. And it was wild. He disclosed so many crazy details, not just of the bad boy enterprise, of Diddy's business, what life was like, but also his personal life. And there were so many bombs dropped. But one of the things that you can see is this kind of umbrella of fear and secrecy and just a lot of control. And you're seeing this reiterated by nearly everyone who has testified so far as to how Diddy ran things, how his interactions were with people, not just with people who worked for him, but everybody in his orbit seemed to treat him almost godlike. Like anything he wanted, he got. Anything he said, well, it was law. And if you did not comply with him, there were going to be a lot of consequences. And Diddy was very direct, a lot of times demeaning, berating, and he would have his employees working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, oftentimes beginning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they would finish at 4 a.m. Diddy would have them staying with him day and night, no matter what, just not even thinking about how this would affect them or anything like that. Now, that's not the crazy part, but I just wanted to lay that foundation on what is going on, kind of the overall tone of the testimony today. One of the most startling claims, well, that was when James testified that he was forced to take two polygraph tests, one after Cassie's love bracelet went missing, and another when Diddy's watch disappeared. While he passed both of these tests in relation to the items in question, he later admitted to the examiner during the second polygraph that he had stolen something, but it was just a pair of Sean John jeans and a little bottle of Ciroc. But those are just small items. But I think they're symbolic of the paranoia and micromanagement allegedly plaguing Diddy's team. That they were watching everything, looking at every detail, making sure that if anything happened, there could never be, Cassie misplaced her bracelet, or Diddy misplaced his watch, or someone did something. He would automatically assume the staff had stolen from him. And it was so bad, he was having them routinely take these polygraph tests, which is unheard of. You would think that this was some type of government agency or, something where you need a security clearance for. But no, this was just normal standard operations within Diddy's empire. James then admitted that he had taken ecstasy from one of Diddy's personal medical bags. Now, this is a famous Louis Vuitton bag where he keeps everything from Viagra, birth control, actual abortion pills that's separate from Plan B. So it would be Plan B and abortion pills. And a lot of these pills required a prescription, whether it was Percocet and things. And Diddy would have never have them in his name. Sometimes they would even be in, some of his employees' names, or if they would be under his alias, Frank Black. No, Frank Black is the name that he used at hotels when he would do free golfs. When he took this ecstasy from Diddy's bag, this was during a New Year's Eve party, and that he described it as he was Diddy bopping. And the question was like, what is Diddy bopping? I guess this is a term that it was used by Diddy and everyone around him. And it's supposed to mean that he was vibing. Basically, once you take drugs and you're kind of vibing, that's called Diddy bopping, which is insane. Because if you think about it, his actual employees, because Cassie was an employee too, but this man is an employee where he had to keep a bag full of drugs and all types of things. But then this term was used loosely within his company to talk about Diddy bopping, and it was known that you were vibing while you're under drugs. This is actually going to be very crucial in the government's ability to prove the RICO trial, to prove their entire case. Because again, a lot of people are thinking of like, oh, these are just friends or randoms, or Cassie is just was a girlfriend. No, these are employees. Cassie was an employee. This man was an employee. These are things you cannot do or have around your employees running a business. This is definitely something that is going to hurt him. Now, while he was Diddy bopping, high, he said that Diddy filmed the party and filmed him specifically. And the next day showed James the footage and asked him, were you on ecstasy? And James admitted it. But then Diddy's reply was, I'm going to keep this in case I need it. Guys, he literally said, I'm going to keep the evidence of you as my employee taking ecstasy, my ecstasy, high. And if I ever need, I'm going to make sure that footage stays in my control in case I ever need to use it. Now, he doesn't directly say that he was blackmailing him or anything like that, but this plays into everything that we've heard about the freak off tapes and the broad blackmail that Diddy would do on everybody around him, whether it was during a freak off or just his parties in general. In fact, if you guys remember from the raid, Diddy had security cameras filming 24/7 all around his property on the outside, but also in every single room at different angles, like even the bathroom within his homes, he would have these cameras set up in order to catch people doing anything or to just spy on them. So think of all the hours of footage he has on not just his employees, women like Cassie, but other celebrities, politicians, and of course, guys, Obama's name will be brought up. And another bizarre story, James testified about entering a hotel room where he had set it up for Diddy and Cassie to do a freak off. Well, he had to go to the door. He was trying to knock on the door, but no one answered. So he ended up using his key because, again, he had a key to these hotel rooms or freak off rooms whenever it happened because he would have to help set it up. So Cassie was not the only person setting up the freak off. I think she would get some items, but then a lot of people who worked for him at Bad Boy would help to do this, would help set up everything for the freak off. So he needs to get into the room. He's trying to get in touch with Diddy. He knocks on the door. No one answers. He opens it with his key. And in there, he sees Cassie lying on the bed. And she's completely knocked out. She sleeps. She's out of it. So I don't know if this was after a freak off, during a freak off, like a break, or before the freak off began. Either way, Cassie was passed out, most likely on drugs, as she's testified to. Now, he made a special note to say that he found Cassie lying flat on her back underneath the covers. This was strange to him because he'd always just seen her sleeping on her side. But then he saw, out of the blue, a man that he said was about 5'8" with long hair, and he had a huge package. His junk was really big. It was so big, in fact, like it was like burned into his brain that he could remember this detail from long ago. So when he came in, when the guy saw that he was there, he all of a sudden ran into the bathroom. So this male escort with this huge junk runs in the bathroom, and Diddy is actually in there showering. So again, I think this was probably after a freak off, but I think this shows this disturbing nature of it all. Like just how open the employees knew about it, how people were involved with it. We know these freak offs, what Diddy has done, it wasn't in isolation. It wasn't just, only Cassie and Diddy and maybe one other person, two other people. We know his security was all part of it. And now we know his assistants were part of it. They're bringing in people who can testify that this bad boy record company, right, where they're supposed to be working, they weren't just doing work for the company or maybe some personal assistant work, but they were actively doing illegal activities like procuring drugs and participating and seeing some of the things going on. But of course, no one said anything at the time. James next described an eventful night that involved Suge Knight at Mel's Diner. He and bodyguard D-Rock were sent to get cheeseburgers when they spotted Suge in a nearby car. Now, after a brief interaction, they noticed four SUVs pulling up, and they were actually parked like, I don't know how it was laid out, but he said they were on different sides of the parking lot, kind of, I guess, lining the parking lot or making sure that the exits, or if they tried to drive off. It was really strange. But they noticed as soon as they saw him, Suge actually came up to the window, dapped them up, and then suddenly all of these cars arrived. Now, this ties back into testimony that Cassie gave, right? Where she says that she was with Diddy, and then all of a sudden he got a call about Suge Knight being spotted somewhere at Mel's Diner, and that he ended up taking off. He ended up getting his gun, and Cassie was crying and worried because she didn't want him to do anything stupid or something to happen. So there was a little dust up on Cassie's memory when she was testifying about what time this was, what day it was. And a lot of people were making a big deal of this, like she was lying about it. But now we have corroboration that that happened. If she got a date or time wrong, I mean, guys, this is over a decade ago. All right. So she may not have every single detail, and it's going to be told from her perspective with all the stuff going on with them, her having done drugs and being part of this freak off, always exhausted. It was just mouth sores, infections. There was a lot going on. And I was trying to tell people that, listen, just because there was a little mix up on the stand, that is normal for a case. That's normal when a witness is on the stand. The prosecution knows what they're doing. They brought in that testimony at that time. And then the cross examination, oh, they're poking holes in Cassie's story. But now, this former assistant of Diddy, worked for Diddy, is confirming that story. So this is why I keep telling people this trial is going to last 8 to 10 weeks. We're talking about over 2 months. With that in mind, you have to understand they are building this brick by brick, layer by layer. The government does not bring a case against somebody unless they know they can win. Sure, it can happen that they mess up and they don't meet the burden of proof and a person can get off. But in this case, they are swinging for the fences, and I do not think they're missing, and that this testimony helps tie it up. So after that brief interaction with Suge Knight, and the SUVs pulling up, they noticed someone hand a gun to Suge right there. Now, after they saw that, they fled the scene. They didn't know what was going to pop off, so they wanted to get out of there. But later, James drove Diddy, who had 3 handguns on his lap, back to the diner. But by the time they got there, Suge was gone. Now, James was quite shaken when he was talking about that, and he quit his job shortly after because he was fearing for his own safety and his life, because he was now involved in some very dangerous activity, and this was not something he was used to. He didn't come from that world. He had previously worked for as a salesman and then a personal assistant to somebody else, but he had never been involved in any kind of street life. If you see a picture of this guy, I think you'll get what I mean. He is not used to any hood activity. James also testified that Diddy's Louis Vuitton medical bag, where he kept a lot of his drugs and all these different things, it's been mentioned in this trial quite a bit. And he now confirmed some new stuff, that it contained Viagra and Just for Men hair dye. Now, James also said, this was the bombshell, guys. This was the bombshell of the day. He said that Diddy had ecstasy pills in his bag, and they were shaped like a president. And he was then asked, which president? You know what I'm going to say? Barack Obama. Like, the courtroom was shocked by this. Ecstasy pills in the shape of Barack Obama? Like, what? How do you even get those made? Are these custom made? Is this a street drug? I don't know much about street drugs. I've never done street drugs. So someone tell me, is this something that's common, that they will shape them after famous people or former presidents? I just think Obama in particular is really, really wild, because it's not the only time that Obama's name comes up in his testimony. He then went on to say that he frequently saw Diddy take drugs, including opiates during the day and ecstasy at night. Now, James also said he sometimes picked up drugs for Diddy and his friends and often brought narcotics to Diddy's hotel rooms. Like I told you guys, having his employees do illegal activity, threatening them with blackmail, abusing them. The list goes on and on. James went on to say next that he often bought baby oil, Astroglide, and condoms for Diddy, but never included these items on any formal expense reports. Instead, he was reimbursed with cash through the security staff. And he actually had to pay with his own money and then, I guess, just tell them and he would get reimbursed. But Diddy never wanted it to be on any type of formal paperwork for it to be entered into, into the his financial records, nothing. So if you go and look at Bad Boy Enterprises, if someone was to do an audit, you wouldn't see reimbursement for illegal drugs. Of course not. So he was having his employee, his assistant, do go and buy illegal street drugs for Diddy to use, and specifically to be used in part of the prosecution's case, their assertion that these freak offs were part of the sex trafficking. They were part of, bringing in prostitutes. It was all part of the RICO case. So when you think about it, you have to understand everything that they're asking, it's going to tie together, whether it helps tie another witness's testimony from earlier or later on. We're going to find out more step by step. I think the case is being laid out, but in particular, David James's testimony about this illegal activity is looking really bad for the defense. Now, speaking about the defense, they were pretty livid. You can tell because in the cross-examination, defense attorney Mark Agnifilo, kept repeating and emphasizing that these purchases were not processed through Bad Boy Entertainment. Clearly trying to draw this line between Diddy's personal habits and his business dealings. But they can't do that because this man was on the payroll of Bad Boy Entertainment. So when you're having an employee, not a friend, not a family member, not an associate, do this type of activity for you, it falls under the workload, the work purview, the job description of the employees to engage in illegal activity. The prosecution ended up asking James a series of questions that led to him admitting that he often was around when Diddy would meet with high profile celebrities, but also politicians. Now, the prosecution asked, which politicians? Who did he meet with? He said, former presidents. Which former president? Barack Obama. So this is the second time that Barack Obama's name has been brought up. I'm actually working on a video that details Diddy's ties to Barack Obama. But then also, guys, another thing that was not brought up in court, but I have a full video coming out about it, that Diddy is actively seeking a pardon from Trump. Diddy is a known Democrat, right? He's, not just a A-list or a celebrity who voted for the Democrats. He actively campaigned for different Democrats. He had the Vote or Die initiative with Oprah. He had all of these different, he was heavily, heavily involved in politics. He wasn't just, kind of like a celebrity on the side who's just like, oh, vote blue. No, he was deeply entrenched in the Democrat Party. And so now with all of this coming out, it begs to question, why in the world is he now seeking a pardon for Trump? Again, the Trump thing is not part of this case and it was not brought up in court. It has nothing to do with this, but it just to show you the delusion of Diddy, that who is an active Democrat who has all of this out on him. He now wants Trump to pardon him. It gets wild in the report that I'm going to give you guys. So make sure you are subscribed and hit the notification bell because I think I'm going to drop it today. During the cross-examination, Agnifilo asked James why he wasn't afraid to testify about all of these sensitive events, possibly implicating him to illegal activity. Well, James calmly replied that he has a proffer agreement with the government, essentially confirming that he's cooperating with the government under legal protection. This was a significant revelation. It adds weight to his testimony and shows the feds see him as more than just a former assistant. He's a cooperating witness. Now, I don't know if he has any type of deal or what the details are or any type of crimes that he could be tied to, but either way, this is significant. So I don't really know if it's going to impact the prosecution's case that much, it could help the defense to show, listen, this guy is only claiming this stuff because he doesn't want to get, his own charges. He's a witness for the prosecution. He's basically signed a deal or has a deal in order to throw Diddy under the bus. So can you really trust what he's saying? Which is a common thing to do with witnesses. But again, like I tell you, you can't just take one witness in isolation. You got to add them all up at the end. Agnifilo also tried softening James's image of Diddy, getting him to admit that he actually respected him as a businessman, and especially for his work with Sean John. James also called Bad Boy Entertainment like a family, noting he had genuine friendships with the people that were there. And he even talked about how, Diddy's mother, that he was kind of close with Diddy's mother, and that she would come in and that she knew her, and that she would, they would be treated like family. Now, I don't know about your family, but a lot of the things alleged there are pretty wild. So, and Diddy being the man that he is, you have to think about who raised him. Now, there have been rumors about Mama Combs for many years and her involvement in things. There's even information out there. I don't know if it was in a lawsuit or not. I cannot remember. So don't quote me on this, but I know it did happen, that Diddy slapped his mother in the face one time really hard. So I don't know if his mother has been victimized by him, if she's just part of the whole his whole empire, all the illegal stuff that's going on. But I would have to think that she knows who her son is, that she's essentially been in his life forever, that he's heard these things. I mean, she's heard these things, she's seen what goes on, she knows about the freak off, she knows about the drugs. And to kind of make them seem, I guess, the employees, kind of a form of coercion, is to make them feel like family, make them feel this love. Remember, Diddy changed his name to Love right before the arrest. That was like his fifth name that he's added to himself. He was Puff Sean John, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, just Puff, Diddy. And then now you have Love, which to me is a form of manipulation that a lot of times narcissists will use to try to make it seem like, listen, we're a family. We don't tell on each other. You're like a son of mine. You're like a brother. You're like this. And family doesn't tell on each other. I think that's just kind of like my own thinking. There's no testimony about it, but that's what I'm feeling about it. Now, an odd and slightly comical moment came when James described a sexual encounter with a woman, basically a prostitute, arranged by Roger Bonds, who later, he did, at the time, he didn't know this woman was a prostitute, but then he found out because the woman asked for $200. He thought it was just a normal interaction. And he went to Roger Bonds like, now she wants $200. I don't understand. And he's like, yeah, she's a worker. She's a prostitute. You got to pay her. James went ahead and paid her, but was really shocked when she then asked to take a shower after they got finished. Now, for $200, he was thinking to himself, I want my money back. Now, this, like, the courtroom just kind of exploded with laughter. Even the jury laughed about this. But the defense was trying to, I don't know what they were trying to use to paint him with, like, because he unknowingly slept with a prostitute, ended up having to pay her $200, but I guess it wasn't really all that because she didn't want to take a shower. So I don't know where they were going with it, but it was a funny moment in a pretty serious trial. Now, after James wrapped up his testimony and had the cross-examination, they brought in Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura. So when she took the stand, it was very brief, like super brief, and they did not do a cross-examination, but it was powerful. She confirmed receiving a disturbing email from Cassie warning that Diddy had threatened to release sex tapes, less the freak-off tapes, and hurt both her and Kid Cudi. And I think perhaps the most damning part, Diddy said that she had to pay him $20,000, which Cassie's parents ended up putting a mortgage on their home in order to give Diddy this money so he wouldn't release Cassie's sex tape and hurt them. This is wild. To me, this is pretty devious. So her family, who obviously doesn't have that type of money, Diddy, who is a multimillionaire at the time, eventually it was said that he became a billionaire. Now, that fortune has gone down quite a bit. But as a form of manipulation, threatening Cassie's mother's worried about her daughter, and then they get this email demanding that they pay $20,000 so this blackmail tape doesn't leak. I think this was so damaging to hear her say this and her having to mortgage her home, this woman who does not have means to mortgage her home in order to protect her daughter, that the defense didn't even bother to question it, which to me confirms that this is what Diddy did. They didn't even challenge it. They didn't try to challenge it at all. That speaks volumes. Regina also described an incident in Los Angeles where Diddy snatched Cassie's phone during an argument. Cassie testified to this, guys. Remember that? Now, this prompted Cassie to end up calling the police. Do you guys remember that they were in the car? Cassie's mother was worried about her. And she asked Diddy, can I tell, no, Diddy told her, tell your mother you're okay. So when she unlocked her phone, Diddy grabbed the phone, jumped out the car, ran down Wilshire Boulevard with her car, and left Cassie stranded without her phone for hours. Now, eventually, because her mother didn't hear back from her and she knew what was going on with Diddy, the mother called the police. You guys remember when Cassie testified to it? So now the mother is confirming that story. Diddy eventually returned Cassie her phone, but this just adds another layer of all of this intimidation and volatility to their relationship, that her own mother was experiencing this trauma as well. It's pretty sick, I think. And just to hear that Diddy was doing these childish things like, oh yeah, tell your mother you're fine, even though Cassie's not fine, just wants to push her mother off so she's not in their business anymore, but then takes the phone and runs down the street. I would say, what is he smoking? But we already know he's on drugs. So let's continue. So after Cassie's mother finished her testimony, they brought in, just before a midday break, this new witness, who is another male escort known as the Punisher. Now, Cassie referred to a picture when the prosecution asked her earlier during her testimony when she was on the stand. They were showing her literally like a booklet of different men from the freak offs, these different escorts, and one of them she identified as the Punisher. But at the time, they asked her, do you know his name? And she said no. But clearly the prosecution does, because he is now on the witness stand. This guy allegedly was brought into Diddy's circle in a manner similar to Daniel Phillip. Now, that was another male escort who had previously testified, I believe, on day 2. The early focus was on baby oil, sexual favors, and how these escorts were introduced to Diddy's parties under very questionable transactional circumstances. And it echoed a lot of what Daniel Phillips had to say. Now, this testimony is still going on. The day is not over, but he is confirming all of the sex work, and it also ties into the coercion, the prostitution part of the charges that Diddy has. And I believe, and I've heard from some legal experts, but that the government has already proven their case. That part of the charge against Diddy, I forget, it's like whatever is about prostitution, that the government has proven exactly what they need to prove. And the defense really hasn't put up a good enough fight in order to discredit what the prosecution has to say or what any of these male escorts have to say. I mean, really, even when they are cross-examined, I don't see how they're adding anything to the defense. I don't see how they're helping, because these guys don't really have any skin in the game. They're not getting, none of them have gotten any type of deal. They're not being charged with anything. If there was a charge to be made because they were escorts, it's past the statute of limitations. And essentially, you may say, oh, well, if it's past the statute of limitations for them, then it has to be past the statute of limitations for Diddy. Well, that's just not true, guys. So, because it's part of the broader RICO trial. So that is what happened. So let's pretend that you did something back in even the 80s, right? And it's past statute of limitations. You can't be charged for it at this point. But if it's part of a broader RICO, racketeering, sex trafficking, all of that continues to today. Because remember, when they went to arrest Diddy, they caught him with large bags of baby oil, Astroglide. They caught him with illegal drugs, a pink powder substance that was in a pill bottle, not under Diddy's name, but under the Frank Black name. Okay, because do you guys remember that testimony? So that even during his arrest, this is what he's caught in. And as they continue to build their case, they're probably going to bring in witnesses that are more current to some of the things that Diddy is still participating in. So we don't know what else is going to unfold. I just wanted to give you guys this recap a little bit earlier before court finishes. Now, court is going to actually finish soon, so make sure you check out my channel again later on. Hit that notification bell because I'm going to be doing a broader recap of everything that happened that wasn't detailed already in this one. And there's a lot more coming out that you're not going to want to miss. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think so far of the government's case. What do you think? I think in particular, them not cross-examining Cassie's mother speaks volumes. And I think she had a really big impact on the jury, but I could be wrong. Either way, I will see you guys very shortly.